not. We're not pros. All of us. No, we'll do it very conversational.
Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stenziano, host of Gino podcast, here with my co-host, a multifamily mentor, the coach, chef, the father, six, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy. Gino Barber. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stenziano, I'm doing great, brother. How you doing this morning?
Always making it happen, big man. Today's guest is the founder and CEO of Rockstar Capital, a Texas-based firm that specializes in investment and management of multifamily assets. We've grown to over 4,500 units. You know, half the time we get these things wrong. It might even be more than that. Over 23 communities, and have been consistently listed as top 1% nationally for online resident satisfaction. You know you're doing something right when you're talking about the folks and customer service. So, without further ado, Roberto Martinez, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. A pleasure to be on. Thank you.
Hey, the pleasure is all ours. Gino always, yells at me for snow plowing. So we do want to elaborate a little bit from where the company started. I think before the show we talked a little bit coming off the back of the recession in 2008. But I want to hear from you sort of how the company started and then the tie-in to the vertical integration there as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, like a lot of people, my first mentors were my parents, and they told me to go to school and get good grades. And I did that. And then what do you do when you get to college? Same thing. You have to get good grades and you get a good job. And you keep following these mentors, but you're only going to go as far as those mentors go because they can only show you what they know. And it wasn't until I hit some job dissatisfaction in the corporate workforce right around 2007 that I found a crazy guy on the radio here in Houston, and I joined his real estate club. So my story goes all the way back to 2007. Met a partner there. He and I formed a little company between 2008 and 2011. We bought 2,000 units together. He was the face of the company. I was more of the operator, the guy, the Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to the guy behind the curtain. That was me. But what I was doing was I was cutting my teeth. I pushed us through the recession. I got us through 100% refinances between 2008, 2011, when nobody was lending money out. So I saw what a heavy recession does. I was one of those guys on the side of the fence where I was buying somebody else's misery, and that's how I got started buying deals at 15.5 a door, 24.5 a door. What's another one? 26 a door. Really, really low numbers. And understanding that, wow, I'm buying it this cheap, but somebody didn't pay that. Somebody paid much more than that, and they're probably losing their shirt. Of course, I'm not thinking about that. So as most partnerships do, they end. Everything has a start and an end, and he and I had an ending. And so in 2011, I started Rockstar. I brought on a couple of my key people that I kept from my previous management company, and I started doing it my way. I wanted that culture to be all about me. How I look at things, how I treat people, how I look at the residents, how I focus on resident retention. So we started that. So and it was just one deal a year, one deal in 2011, one deal in 2012, one deal in 2013, one deal. And then finally in 2014, we started buying a couple of deals at a time. So fast forward to 2023, we've purchased over 6,000 units at Rockstar, another 3,000 units at my other management company. We still have 4,500 units. Our management company, Rockstar Capital, has gone on to win 19 city, state, and national Apartment Association awards. And personally, I'm the only recognized 2-time National Apartment Association Owner of the Year. We're heavy owner management. I know what's going on in all aspects of my business. And the mistakes that I've made in my business is when I gave that responsibility to other people. I went to Grant Cardone's growth conference.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard about this or something, but I heard that I guess the rumor on the street, and you're like, man, they got some rumors going around about me. The rumor on the street was you got a mentoring session or something with Grant, told you to, end the property management because you couldn't scale. And then if that's true, elaborate from there, or maybe let's hear your side of it.
It's funny that the rumor's out there, but it is a true rumor. I did pay Grant some mentoring dollars, and I wanted to get to the next level. And a lot of the advice that he gave me in other mentoring sessions was really good. That one particular advice, it was a mistake. He said that I should focus more on acquisitions. This is around 2020, 2021. And, around that time too, and I don't know if you guys have gone through this, our company is going through some changes internally. People that I had built the business around were now they've done well and they're leaving. And so right around 2019, right before 2020, I lost a couple of my key people. And that's hard because when they leave the business, a lot of what's in their head leaves with them. And if you're not the best at putting all procedures down and keeping it going, then you're going to suffer. And that's what happened to us. A lot of my key people that I met 7, 8, 9 years ago that I groomed them from like a leasing agent, and now they're head of my operations because I trusted in them are gone. So it's like it puts it on me like, okay, well, now it's time for us to evolve. So I started looking at resumes, hiring big name people from big name property management companies, and I learned a lesson there. Big management companies have so many redundancies and so many people that it's not the same thing when you're coming to an owner operator where we're running lean and mean and we're trying to maximize investor dollars. See, they're just collecting a paycheck at the big management company, and where I'm not even charging heavy fees. I'm making my money on my override. I'm making my money on cash flow. I don't need all those heavy fee-centric items that the big management companies were charging. So I didn't have a huge staff.
Well, and you're probably only managing your own properties, right?
Yes, I still don't do third-party management today.
We're the same way, and our management company, I don't want to say it came out of necessity, but that's where we wanted that control, and we wanted to drive, what we refer to as PPU, which is profit per unit. To your point, we want to have control to make the properties make money, right? It's not about making like the management dollars per se.
Yeah, and I want to hit that too, right? Because it's not about control, So I mean, I want to get back to that point. So, I had this session with Grant, and of course, Grant's never done property management, and he's been very successful what he's doing. He's like, I can see where you're going. And I've often been compared like a mini Grant. We have a similar style, and just the thought.
You'd be the big Grant.
I could be. Well, I want to be Robert.
He's like 5'5", right?
Yeah, I want to be Robert, but he's got big ideas. And one of those was, man, every time I talk to you, you're always talking operations. You're always talking management. He goes, this is one of the greatest buying cycles ever. You got to buy as much as you can. And so, to his defense, it was true. And so as I was going through this rebuilding at the management company, and, I couldn't find what I lost, I was getting frustrated. And so his advice to kind of like, you know what, enough now, you know what to keep an eye on, go get a big management company. He actually recommended me the management company that they use. And so I interviewed them. I asked the right questions, I thought, and I went from there. It was nice to take a pause, to take a reset and get away from the human aspect, because real estate's easy. People are difficult. So we did this. I did hire a management company, one of the top 5 management companies that has like 120,000 unit count. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get all this redundancy, all these people. Fuck, man. One of the greatest mistakes of my life was doing that. Because, you see things, but you're like, you know what? You doubt yourself. I've had success, but, these guys are doing it at such a big level. Their portfolio occupancy is, 95, 96. And we were struggling a little bit at 91. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get this in. And the mistake that I did was that I didn't trust myself to remember how I got here. I forgot how I got all those awards that are out in the lobby right now, all those 19 city, state, national awards, because I wanted to trust these guys.
Just so the folks know, those are property management specific awards, right? Those are property management specific awards. That's why I just wanted so folks listening know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And the mistake that I learned was that they will fill occupancy at all costs. At all costs. They don't care, because that's how they get compensated. It's occupancy, management fee. They don't care who they let in. They don't care the expenses that they charge to get it in. And we lost a lot of integrity within our group. Then when I'm starting to see things, I couldn't make changes with them fast enough. Even though I was the owner, I was getting overruled on things. I'm like, no, that's not how it needs to go. They were wanting to send my teams, and we're struggling at the lowest point in our portfolio. We got to like 84, 85%, which is really low on over 4,000 units. And they were forcing me to send my teams to some stupid culture building conference where they're going to charge me back $1,500 a person to attend, which we all know what these big conferences are. They're
wait, are we talking DEI or PPU here, man? Is it profit per unit or equity and inclusion?
Robert and Jake, there's a lesson in all of this.
Yeah.
What's good for Grant may not be good for Robert,
Yep.
It may not be good for Jake and Gino. And I'm sick and tired of everyone saying scale, bigger's better, bigger's better. I'm reading a book by Morgan Housel, his second book. And when we evolve, species that get bigger tend to get more fragile as well. So don't think that bigger is always better. It
Gino,
doesn't
that's
have to be.
insightful.
You
Wow.
like that? You like that, Jake?
Wow,
I
we
read
got a
it this morning.
philosopher over here. Holy shit.
But listen, because I'm so sick of everybody saying you need to get the 6,000 units. We have a very nice portfolio at 1,600 units owned by ourselves with no investors. You buy one deal a year like Robert did, and you buy 1 to 2 deals a year like Jake and Gino did. After 5 years, you are free, baby. And after 10 years, it is life changing, completely different. So what may be good for Grant, which is awesome for him. He wants to be the B. I don't need to be the B. I can be the 100 million.
What's the B?
The billionaire.
Oh, the Billy.
He wants to be the billionaire. Yes. So I'm I'm pointing that out because scale is great. You want to get some type of scale, but it doesn't have to be someone else's scale. Read the book Small Giants by Bo Burlingham. It really lays it out really well on we want to be the Chick-fil-A of the apartment industry. That's what Jake and I want to strive for. We want to have that customer service. So we like operations. So for us to do what you did would have been suicide for us as well, because we can't get 2,000 or 3,000 units a year because we can't hire, especially during COVID and the pandemic when you can't find employees. So it's really important. Grant is wise. He's done really well, but Grant's done what's really the best thing for Grant. You should take his advice with a grain of salt and apply it to what you're trying to accomplish, what your core values are, what your values are, and what your mission statement is.
Yeah, and I don't blame him at all. I'm my own man. I make my own decisions. And as you said, what works for him may not work for you. A lot of the other advice he gave me did work. That one particular advice did not. So I realized that I had to pull the plug and cut bait. I think, I am a really good operator. And at that time, we had anywhere from 9 to 12 months cash reserves stocked away. Even in the great times, I only gave away what I need to give away. I kept the rest in reserve. And I'm thinking, it needs to be there for a rainy day. And that rainy day was that management decision that I made. I mean, I think at the low, we lost 25% of our nest egg just through those from January to May of
what year?
23.
Oh, that was in 2023.
23. So at the same time as I'm going through this management change and I'm seeing my expense model increase, we can get into the rest of the story. We're seeing interest rates pop. We're primarily in the Sun Belt. We saw our insurance double and triple. God forbid we're in Florida where they couldn't even get a child. And they couldn't even get insurance unless you gave away your firstborn child. It was a really perfect storm of a lot of negative events all occurring at the same time. So I had to control one. My dad said, he always said, I can only control what's in the four walls of my business. I can't control what's outside. So I could control who manages it. So I fired those guys. They knew they did a terrible job. I reclaimed it back in July 25th of 23. We took over with $800,000 of delinquency across the portfolio. Worse yet, even though I lost a quarter of our cash supply, of our cash reserves, I also inherited a bunch of invoices that they weren't paying. Their accounting was so bad that they were recording it on the P&L, but the money was never making it out of the accounts to pay off the vendors. So we inherited, I don't know, close to $2 million of invoices. So here we are, fast forward to April. I'm super excited. We ended the month of March at a record low 180,000 delinquencies, which is pretty good on 23 portfolio on the 23, which is right around 3%. We had 13 of the 23 properties hit their delinquency bonus. Our NOI is jumping back up. Portfolio, we're at 91%, but we're also clean in our delinquency. So our economic is really close to 90% as well. So we're on the upward climb. And I will say that when you go through these events, you challenge yourself. You find out what you're made of. And there's all the common expressions, necessity is the mother of invention, survival of the fittest. What are you going to do? Everybody's watching, and it brought out that inner person in me that I didn't even know was there, Jake and Gino. I didn't know I had that last gear left to access to get us out of this. I'm super excited because now it's April and I'm going to make my goal of telling my investors we're back to cash flowing and we're back to distributing, even with the higher rates. I mean, at one point, I have 9 deals that are on floating rate debt. I've got now half of them wrapped up. and I still have another 3 to 4 that I got to get done probably this year and the beginning of next year. But I got to survive. I got to keep cash in there. I got to hold cash back. Our insurance just came in. It came back down from a high of like 1,800 a door to like right around 1,200 a door. So that produces some additional cash flow. My escrows are going to go down, which is a lot. People don't talk about that, right? When your insurance goes up, your escrows last year didn't have it. So you got to wire the difference. And now the bank doesn't want to get scared. So, I mean, that doesn't want to be scared again. So they increase the escrows. So that strips your future cash flow. I mean, it was a wild time the last 12 months, but it built us. And I've learned some important lessons. I will never cede control again on any aspect of the business, whether it's underwriting, whether it's property management, whether it's our maintenance teams. I need to be involved in all the big meetings. No policy happens without my stamp of approval. And that's how it has to be now. I got scared to the point of almost extinction. And now we're at a point now where we're surviving again and starting to thrive again. And so it's very rewarding for us. And that's why I was really excited to share that with you guys, is that, I don't think everybody could have done it. But we did. And in the process, we lost the deal, and we can talk about that. We had a Real Deal article come out. I'm not the kind of guy that hides from stuff. I'm going to be very transparent. They contacted me. I gave my side of the story so they understood. Others have not. And of course, when you don't give your side of the story, anything gets printed. But I was able to write my own paragraph. Most of what I said made that article. But, we did it. We bought a deal right in the prime of a 2022. It was we closed that deal, guys. You're not going to believe this. We closed that deal right before the very first rate hike. It was like the sweet spot of what was going on. So we had to go through higher insurance. I had to go through this management changeover and floating rate debt that, we were paying debt that we should never have been paying. We blew out all of our underwriting metrics where you're supposed to add, 2 points and all that, right? All the safe things they teach you. This was a whole new world. It's like you wake up one day and water isn't wet anymore and the sky isn't blue. Like the laws of physics didn't exist anymore. And we got bled out. Not knowing how to handle any of this, right? I reached out to different people. I was told to hire a consultant. I just finished watching a lot of those 2008 movies on the recession. And I'm like, there was always a big consultant in the room that was there talking to everybody. I'm like, I don't know anything about that finance scheme. And that's everything we could talk about too, right? When we're doing underwriting, when we get into these real estate education classes, they don't talk to you a lot about the asset management portion of this. They don't talk to you a lot about creative financing. So I didn't know a lot of that. I know how to put heads in beds. I know how to keep them there. I know that my number one expense metric is move outs. So keep move outs at a minimum, have the highest resident retention, focus on resident reviews. But none of that ever talked about like how I get creative with the bank. So I hired a consultant, paid him $100K. And ultimately the advice was miss a payment. Miss a payment. Get their attention. And that was the worst fucking advice that you could ever have. Because if you miss a payment, you surrender all. I learned this the hard way, and I'm going to share with everybody that's listening because I don't want you to go through that. You surrender a lot of your rights as the borrower. And now you can fast forward all this interest, and it shows up there on the mortgage coupon. And it's like, what is it? Oh, don't worry about it. I forgot what it's called, but there's this like fast forward. So I made up the payment right away when I realized that this negotiation technique didn't work. It soured the relationship with the lender. And as we went on, I raised the capital to save the deal. I raised $4.5 million. I raised it in 30 days from the investors. Remember, this is 22. It's much harder to raise money today to save a deal because everybody's already been in line saying, I need money. Like, Arbor Twist, sir, can I have some money? Like you're last in line now. I was one of the first in line with my group. Of course, they're in other deals now. It'd be very difficult to raise that. So we had the money raised. I was going to replenish the interest reserve, put money back in our accounts, had it all. I took back management. We're fixing all the things. Like when you're working with a big management company, you're at their mercy. They had one in-house recruiter for all of Houston, and they had 30,000 units here. I have one in-house recruiter, and I got 45 units across Texas. And so I can keep positions filled. They couldn't. So my OT was through the roof.
It's a joke.
All these other expenses that they couldn't manage properly, or HR. Like, I am HR today. Like if you tell me you have a problem, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get her together, and we're going to sit it out, and we're going to man up, and someone's going to stay, someone's going to go and end the story. In those kind of companies, you have to commit murder to get let go because they're so afraid of a lawsuit. But when your ball's on the line, you're like, dude, see you later. You got 90 days to perform or you're out. If you don't spark it up, you're gone. But back to the story, at the last second, the lender pulled the rug for me. I had already taken back management. I had the money ready to wire them. And they said, hey, everybody's good. We talked to committee. Last thing, we need you to go back to the same management company. I'm like, what? No. They're part of the reason why we're in this situation. Like, no, I know that. But, you shouldn't have taken back management without letting us know and this and that. I'm like, my balls are on the line here and I got your money. You're telling me that I have to go back to what put me in this, to part of what put me in this situation? And they said, yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to die.
It's a Fannie deal?
No, it was through a debt fund.
Okay.
It was through a debt fund. I'm not going to mention their name.
That's fine.
But it was through a debt fund. And I said, listen to me. I said, I'm going to die on this hill because I cannot in good faith send you my investors $4.5 million.
You're wasting your time at that point.
If we're going to go back with the same management company. I'll lose this deal if I have to because I'm not going to lose any more money. And they weren't bluffing. And they said,
well, you weren't either, apparently.
No, I was, yeah, take it or leave it. So, yeah, and that's a double-edged sword. I'm glad I didn't, lose any more money, but you lose reputation. And that's where this article came out. I've never had a deal go bad. I've never had an issue. I lost $18 million of the money that we had raised on that deal. But you know what? In defeat is how people remember you. And I asked myself, how would I want to be remembered on this? So, first of all, you got to increase investor communications like there's no tomorrow. You got to keep them up to date on everything. You got to let them know where you're at, what the situation is, and then they have to make their own conversations on what they want to do. Then when it didn't work our way, I told them why. And I said, listen, I know you're all in shock. I'm in shock. Nobody lost more money than me. To make that last payment, we didn't have the money. I put in another $800,000 of my own money. So I had $700,000 in the original investment. I had $800,000 that I put in as a cash infusion to help us make that next payment to keep the negotiation alive with the lender so I could raise the $4.5 million. I would have been paid back the $800,000 had I raised them. And it was a very selfish decision I could have made to send the lender the $4.5 million, pay myself back, limit my losses. But I didn't do that. I couldn't in good faith wire that money over if I couldn't have complete autonomy and control. And so I told the investors the situation. We set up calendar invites for anybody to want to have a chat with me. So we had, 150 investors in that. I went through probably close to 100 of one-on-ones where everybody got 15, 20 minutes to say what you need to say. It's a death. It's the end of a relationship. It's you got to have closure with that. And I made sure that everybody had their opportunity to say what they needed to say. And most of them took it extremely well. They're accredited investors. They know that this happens. Many of them, 66% of my investors are repeat investors. So they've made money in other deals, so they lost 100K or maybe they lost a little bit more than that. I think all but one was a really hard combo. And it was a single mom, who, her husband had passed away and this is part of her future. And we had to have that combo. I had to hear that, and hear how this hurt her. But that's what makes you stronger. That's what makes you better. So that you don't make those mistakes in the future. So you think about not going so fast and not being so cavalier. And we get back to what you guys were saying, growing organically, one deal at a time, making sure that you're making the right call. Because I don't ever want to feel that kind of pain again. That was an absolute low point for me in my career. As I said, I have all these great credentials, but nobody remembers the wins. They remember the loss. You talk to Jordan, he doesn't remember all the game-winning shots, but he remembers the ones that he didn't make. And, I feel like I let the investors down on that deal. And there's a lot of people who don't even know me who are throwing, slack and whatever. And nobody who's doing better than me ever said anything to me. It's always the people that are doing worse than me. And you guys have probably had your share of hate. I know that I can sleep at night knowing that I did what was best for the investors. I hung in there every step of the way. I doubled down on my own investment, more than doubled down on my investment to keep the deal alive. And I just know that I can sleep at night knowing that I did all I could. It relit a fire in me that I think maybe had gone out during the last couple of 3 years of our transition before we went to management. Now that we brought back management, it's great. It's like resetting, leaving all the shit that didn't work behind, bringing back key people, kind of getting the band back together of guys that other people had run off that they know what they're doing. So brought them in. We're a young company again, but it's a young company with people that I know from my past that I'll put my balls on the line for. And we're really tight now as a company. And because of that, I have a lot of people who think like an owner. And in fact, the key ones that I really needed the most, they came back and have been there, those early days. And, you guys have been there. When you take back management of over 4,000 units, that's a lot of work. Like, it's not just setting up the management software. You got to find all the contracts.
Dude, the day-to-day is a lot of work, regardless of trying to versus just restarting it, right? Like, that's a whole nother level of bullshit that you got to jump through right there.
For about 3 to 4 months, we didn't leave any earlier than 9 o'clock every night. We didn't. And that's honest. Everybody's listening here in my podcast studio. That's true. We did not leave any earlier than 9 o'clock every day. We lived here at the office because there was so much to do. And I'm extremely, and I'll be eternally thankful. And some of those that are the most critical, as I realized you guys put everything for me. You came when we were at our low point, and I've made them partners in my business. They get a piece of the pie now because of what they showed me and who they were. They could have left me for dead, and they didn't do it. They believed in me, believed in our company, our culture, and now our culture is kicking ass again. We're back to distributing in April and to our investor, which I think is still very difficult to do today. And we're back there. So I'm excited about the future. I think sometimes you have to go through a moment like that to not just humble yourself, but to just remind yourself what you're fighting for, what you're playing for. And we survived it. I don't think you get this big. I mean, again, I got 4,500 units. I lost almost 300 on that deal. I was at 4,800 and change. I think you have to lose one, to really remember and respect the other ones. And I think it'll pay dividends for me and the rest of my career. And for those investors, because I make sure that we stay with them. And I know it's work, guys, because I've gotten multiple emails from those investors. I don't care about anybody else's opinion, but when my investors tell me, how much they appreciate how I handled it. When I went to Grant Cardone's event, and the Cardone Capital guys were coming up to me and they wanted to shake my hand because apparently we have common investors, and that conversation came up with them. On what I had done and how I showed who I was during that time and how I've rescued the portfolio and moved forward. So, it was an opportunity. I didn't know at the time, but it was an opportunity to just really show who I was. And as much as I don't like it, I'm glad it happened. It's part of life. And you got to be better from it. You got to make lemonade with it, man.
Roberto, before we go to the short answers, last question from me. They say problems. You can look at opportunities from the problems that were created. This short-term debt that you went through, would you go back and use bridge debt if you had to go back 2-3 years ago? Would you have done the same thing, or would you have passed on those deals?
It's a great question. If you guys have been doing it as long as I have, bridge debt has been part of it. I mean, I've been doing bridge debt back to 08, 09. 2011, by my first deal was bridge debt. Bridge debt is part of the game. It's part of the value add process. What hurt us is that we had a devil working at the Fed, not thinking on exactly what he was doing. Nobody can absorb 5% plus on your underwriting. Nobody. I have deals even right now that are naked. They have no rate. They have no rate cap. So we're surviving from our NOI. We're surviving from all that. I think it takes big girls to sit in that chair and be the general through that storm. Luckily I went through 08. I went through 2011. I went through, different slowdowns during COVID, during the different things. So I wasn't a first-time guy putting deals together. I hate the word syndicator because that's not what I am. I'm an operator who puts deals together. I'm not a syndicator that gives it to somebody else.
Yeah, but you're. I think the thing is, though, you got to keep in mind, and I don't know. I think we might even have been in a Real Deal article together or something at some point. But they labeled us as syndicators and this, that, and the other thing. And literally, we did a couple, but we're operators, and we have an education company. So you get a lot of shit that's thrown out there. But I think the thing that makes you unique is there's some groups out there that are operators, but most groups that syndicate rely on third party. So they're just going to lump you in there, and it doesn't really matter whatever sort of, things happen after the fact.
Well, but I fit the mold. I did. I was in the third party situation that put me in there. And,
Well, that's even more so to the point then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that if I could have, if I'm 100% certain that had I not been in that, it would not have happened.
If you would have been managing the properties,
Yes, if they would
just
not
to
have
be
put that,
specific. Yeah.
yeah, if they couldn't have, if they wouldn't have put that last, changing of the deal, and said you got to keep the management company, I don't think I would have lost the deal.
Yeah.
I think I would still be. I know I'd have it today. It'd be tough, but I would still have it today. But I'll tell you what, my mom said this to me. She goes, "Are you sure you shouldn't let it go? Because I can see what it's done to you. I feel like it's aged you. I feel like it's changed you. If you could not have that deal, how much better would life be so you can focus on the other 23?"
Mm-hmm.
And it was true. Once we did and we buried the body, we were able to move on and focus on the rest of us. It was always a reminder. I don't ever forget about it. And made us better. So I think that it was good advice, that you do kind of have to go through that loss once in a while. They realize, hey, you don't have the Midas touch. Hey, it doesn't come easy. Underwriting is important. But you have to deal with the things of life, right? We don't know that insurance is going to double. We don't know that we're going to have all these other events. You've got to find ways to operate above it. And it makes you better. And I'm just thankful that it happened to me and not to others, because these lessons that I learned, like all mistakes, right, you'll keep forever. I won't. It creates other wins down the line because you double, triple checked on something in the future.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsor.
Now, we have had a great run in multifamily, going from 0 units to over $250 million in assets. That's over 2,000 apartment deals that we've been able to purchase through our framework: buy right, manage right, and finance right.
Now, Jake and I, we created the Jake and Gino community back in 2015. We launched our first book, Build Our Profits. And since then, our students have closed over 60,000 units. That's over $4 billion in assets they've been able to close over the last 6 years.
And that's why this community has been so successful. We call it results-based education, and we pour back into the community everything that we've learned on our journey from 0 to 2,000 units, and all our systems and scale that we use on our very own property management and investing companies.
Jake, I love that. It's not just education, it's implementation. So what I want you to do, click on that link down below, apply to work with our team, see how we can help you on your journey in multifamily.
All right, we are back. I took some learning lessons down, and I think it's worth sharing to the folks. And one thing that I think was challenging for Gino and myself early on is you're looking to these companies that are larger and third-party management companies and whoever it may be, and you're like, wow, that's where it is. They're so much better than me. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And you look up to these organizations, but it's clear in your experience and what you're sharing that you don't always believe the hype. Because I think if you would have, and to your point earlier, if you would have not gone the third-party route, you may have not ended up in this situation to begin with. So I just want to caution folks out there, just because a company is established and they have a great logo, you got to make sure you don't confuse effort with results, because they may be going out there and going through the motions, but behind the scenes, they may be more focused on DEI than results or profit, or a filling of the the vacancies versus having the proper people admitted into the community. All these things matter, and you have to look and say, okay, these companies have certain metrics that they're going to get paid on. They may not have your best interests at heart. So just keep that in mind, because it was, especially early on when there was, 10 of us running the property management company, you feel like, ragtag a little bit, but you realize the results that you were getting and things that you were doing for your communities was potentially much better than, a third-party group. So I appreciate you sharing that, because we've never done third-party, and that was refreshing to hear. And what I'm hearing from you is bet on yourself. At the end of the day, if you'd bet on yourself a little bit more there and not gone outside, I think that saves a lot. And we always preach buy right, manage right, and finance right. And I think that's a story of everything that you've shared. And if you can look at each one of those components through those lenses and make sure you're managing the buy, managing the management component, and the financing, good things happen. Because we truly believe multifamily investing is a three-legged stool, and we compartmentalize it like that. So with all that being said, thoughts on Arbor? What is the future of Arbor these days? Are they gonna pull through this?
I think they're going to get bought. I
Yeah.
think they did a lot of loans, like a lot of guys. They've just got their hands in more cookie jars, and they got hit. I think gosh, they lent to a lot of newbie guys, and who didn't have that years of experience.
A lot of floaters out there with
A lot
Arbor,
of
right?
floaters who used a management company, which gave them a false sense of security. And I think you're seeing it. I mean, you're in the headlines for a reason. You're in the headlines for a reason. There's something there. I'm sure. I think they're going to reemerge from this, but I don't think it's going to be as is. I think somebody heads had to roll somewhere, and depending on how deep their pockets are, look. Here's what I do know: if you hold the real estate long enough, you don't lose money. And they were the lender.
If you can hold on to real estate long enough.
Yeah, but they can. They got deep pockets. They've been around for a long time. If you can hold on to the real estate long enough, which is typically a 7 to 10 year horizon, you're not going to lose money. You're not. Rents are growing, and I think you guys read the same economic reports that I see. There is a shortage of housing coming in Houston alone. We are at our lowest inventory point since 2013, and there's no more coming, because inflation took care of that. It's too hard to qualify. It's too hard for these builders to get what they need, and then to get the pricing across.
And it's cheaper to rent.
It's cheaper to rent. I think you saw
Dude, Blackstone just picked up $10 billion yesterday.
About to say, I'm a conspiracy guy, but I saw that Blackstone article yesterday. They've been buying single family homes. 44% of all homes purchased in the last year have been bought by investors. So then now you got Blackstone buying a company all cash because they have a big fund. They lost deals, but they also have a bunch of money to buy new deals. They're going to make it back. So, I do talk to Grant a lot, and I can tell you that guy's never going to sell his real estate. He's convinced that is, I think he's told Elena and the kids, something happens to me, get rid of everything, get rid of the jet, get rid of everything, but do not sell the real estate. He's told me that directly. And so I think that, what was it? The World Economic Forum, you will own nothing and be happy. And you're seeing that happen. When Blackstone makes those kind of big moves into where it just gets conglomerated into one big group, I think that says something.
Do you prefer to eat ants or cicadas? For those that know, no. What's the future look like from here forward? I want to give you, hats off, because I don't know many folks that could have dealt with what you were going through. And I want to be very specific to the listeners out there. For folks that had floating rate debt, that had to deal with insurance going through the roof, Florida, Texas, et cetera, the hiring shortage through COVID, okay, taxes going through the roof, rents maybe not accelerating at the pace they were in prior years, that all creates a snowball and a death spiral for investors that very few can manage through. I don't think folks understand how hard taking back your management company in the midst of a management disaster and then navigating those waters. I don't think folks can genuinely appreciate how fucking hard that has been probably on you. And then still, there's still a lot of work to be done there, I'm guessing. I don't know, other than what you've shared with me here, I don't know that intimately, but I just can't imagine stacking the management piece on top of all that other crap. So hats off to you, because that in itself is a feat, and I don't know that most folks can get through that.
Glory in the good, glory in the bad. I give all the praise to God. There's no way that I could have done it. I've prayed, but I'm a believer, and I'm like, I know He was there with us during those late nights that we're working hard. And making sure we're doing things. So to answer your question, I want to hats off to my team, because, they could have left me at any point and they didn't. Now, at the same time, I've been harder on my teams now the last 12 months than I ever have at any point in my life. It's like some of the emotion, it's more circuitry and stuff now, right? Because it's like, you got 90 days to show me something or you're gone. It's as simple as that. I don't have time to play the HR game with you. Really, 30 days. You better do something better in 30 days than the guy that you're replacing or the girl that you're replacing, or I got the wrong hire. And you got to keep moving through that. So what's ahead for us? So I made a commitment to my investors that I would not buy anything until I got all of my debt put away. And that's, the other side to that, when there's rising interest rates.
Fixed rate debt, ultimately. Everything's fixed, and
Right. So we're all getting fixed rate debt. But the other side that makes it harder is that your cap rates go up with the interest rates going up. So you've lost all that NOI gain that you built up. I bought a deal. The two deals I just recently refinanced, I bought them in 18 and 19. And we were cash flowing like the Dickens. I had to learn preferred debt. I didn't know what that was. Everything I did was just straight. We shared the profits 80-20. I had to learn preferred debt. Once I learned that, started to understand where the sweet spot is of that, roughly 14% preferred debt. I was able to get those two deals across the finish line. And that's crazy. When we were cash flowing like the Dickens in 18 and 19, not knowing that in 22, the world was going to go upside down. And through all of our NOI gain, we're still going to have to do an infusion of cash. So I told the investors that once I put us to safety, I was going to go back and take advantage of this market because it's a cycle. And many of them got started with me back in 2011. We took advantage of somebody else's misery, and we made a lot of money for it. See, nobody talks about the 900% gains, the 800% gains, and all these other ones that you have where you go on full cycle. They want to talk about the one loss. So I have to even remind my own investors, like, hey, the reason why you had money in 2022 to put money was because all the money we made between 2011 and 2019. So there's a cycle coming. It's a reset. I already have an email ready to go that the fact that Blackstone bought $10 billion yesterday tells me that they believe that we are near the bottom, and that if we are true real estate investors and we truly are thinking about buying assets, get ready, get your dry powder put together. I know you've been doing cash infusions on everybody's deal. That was such the devil before. Remember? Oh my gosh, you do a cash call, it's a kiss of death. It's now common these days now to do it because necessity is the mother of invention. You have to do it if you want to survive. So we'll be buying deals in the second half of this year. I've got to get these last 2-3 put to bed. We should have it done by the early summer, and then we'll be ready to go. And hey, there's gonna be a lot of deals. A lot of guys are hitting their maturities. A lot of guys are running out of cash. They're waiting for that rate cut. I'm waiting for the rate cuts. The fact that we've had, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 now pauses on moving rates is a good sign. The fact that Blackstone bought $10 billion yesterday is a good sign that we got to be really close near the bottom. And if you can buy at the bottom at market pricing as of that day, you're going to ride this up because cap rates will come back down. There is a shortage of housing coming. Rents are going to pop through. In 25 and 26, rents are going to be crazy, double-digit rents probably, depending on where you're at, and you're going to have tremendous gain. But you got to get, the number one thing is you got to communicate with your investors what the game plan is, where you at on their other investments. Is it safe or is it still in danger? And then what is your thoughts on moving forward? Because everybody, you need money. The money makes the world go around. You need more. You need more. You can't stop. The Fed, the president, they've shown us that we've lost at least 25% of our purchasing value the last 4 years. You've got to keep your money rolling.
I can't get past what you saw in that larger third-party organization that you're dealing with, because I think it's probably reflective of so much of what we're seeing going on in corporate America today, where you see you're running a small business essentially, and you're doing it the right way. You're serving the customers, making sure the profitability is there. And then you go to a larger group and you see that your interests as the owner essentially are not aligned with theirs.
Not aligned.
And think about the multiple organizations throughout the country that we're feeling these days as Americans. I don't know if you want to comment on that at all, but I think there's a big disconnect from the desire of the consumers versus what's happening in corporate America.
The reason why you integrate and you do self-management, because nobody will care about it as much as you. Nobody's going to stay late. Nobody's going to make that quick decision. Everybody's afraid. And the fact that we were to move faster, we were nimble. Big management companies are big battleships. It takes, an act of Congress to move right or left. And here, when you do your own management companies, you guys know you're a speedboat. You can make a decision on this podcast. You can implement a strategy or something you heard on this podcast today and get it going. This same management company was managing the Tides deals. And I know firsthand that Tides woke up one day and got an email from that management company and said, "You're out of money. We're out." And that says it all. They're not with you. The moment that they cannot get paid, they're gone. They had money when they took over. They ran you into the ground, and then they just left you high and dry. And Tides had to go back and, whatever they had to do to raise more cash, hire somebody else, whatever they did to go to the next day. The management company just moves on. Losing deals to them is part of the job. It's part of every day. But to you, losing a deal is everything. And that's where the big disconnect is. They're just a big, we lost 3,000 units. We're about to pick up another 4,000 unit contract. Who cares? That's how they see it.
They're milking. They're milking. They're not. There's not an alignment. They're milking.
No, they're not alignment. They will use them to put their overhead on you. We found hidden costs, hidden overhead.
Oh, I can only imagine.
They didn't want to explain. A maintenance supervisor that was a portfolio supervisor that was responsible for my assets, making sure that we didn't have deferred maintenance, making sure that we were within fire code and what have you. His overhead was spread all throughout my management company, and they had it as a hidden buried cost under something called maintenance other. It wasn't even in payroll. It was in R&M. And we as we're scrubbing through
I'm sure that's the tip of the iceberg.
It was just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. And he was never on any of the weekly calls. And when I check this out, when I go, hey, where is he? Oh, Jose's he's out. No, he needs to be on the next call. Okay. So next time he gets on the next call, I see him one time. He doesn't know shit about my management company, and he gets fired the next day. And they had to go and get somebody else on it. But if I hadn't said anything, that overhead would still been there. And so that's what they do. They're there to put as much overhead. So they're whining and dining at their big corporate events, not giving a shit about you, the little guy.
And one recruiter, give me a break for as many units.
One recruiter for 30,000 units in Houston.
It's a joke.
So just if you have a minute to talk about this, our OT was through the roof. Our expenses to temporary help, like, here in Houston, we have Liberty Personnel, Inner Solutions, these big temp agencies, through the roof. When I took back management, that was the very first hire I made was I need a recruiter. I got him here. We immediately filled all the holes. We filled 30 holes in the first 30 days. And I've not used a temp agency since day one. I corralled OT. I had to talk with all the managers that your bonus depends on OT. You've got to organize your people, or you got to get rid of them because they don't have the skill set, or they're doing OT. So destroyed OT, brought it down by like 70%. And that's how you do ownership. That's how you do management. When your balls are on the line, you will look at every single item and you ask, do I need that? Okay, and then you're like, how do I get resident retention? One of the things I'll end on this if you guys give me a minute. We created a resident cares team. So this group, these are two managers that have been with me for almost 10 years each. And they're part of this inaugural program that I started in January. They call back every single move-in directly. I know we use another company, a third party, J. Turner Research, to do surveys, and that's fine. But I want to hear from them. They call all 23 properties every week. Check out the move-ins, rate the move-ins, report back to us on our Monday morning leadership meeting. I then gave them responsibility for calling all of the notice of vacates. And I told them, if you will convert a notice of vacate, I will give you $200 a notice of vacate. It has to be approved by the director of management that you actually had it. Last month, we converted 13, and they're just starting. Like they only hit a sample of deals because they're just starting. 13 at, what's your all's move out? $4,000 of expenses. That multiply that 4,000 times 13.
$5,200.
Yeah, divided by 0.06, let's say 6 cap. That's $867,000 of valuation on just a handful of deals. Then I said, okay, how much more bandwidth? Well, we got time. We can do more. Okay, I don't want to send my collections to rent debt. I want them to go to you first. And if you go and save, whatever you collect, I'll give you 10%. I'll give you 10% of whatever you collect. In the first month, they've only done this right. They brought in $13,000 that first month, and 8 of the 10 they brought in 100% of what was paid. I'm thinking, you go to rent debt, you're lucky to get 50%, and then you got to share that with rent debt.
Dude, the highest I'm hearing from these companies is 23, and ours is like 15. So like that ain't happening. You're lucky. You're lucky.
So I got to figure out what my girls did. I don't know what they did, but they got 8 of the 10 that they called on because they only did 10. 8 of the 10 that they called on, they got full balances and charges back. And they asked me, hey, since we got a full amount, could I have 20%? So I did the math, and I'm like, yeah, I'll give you 20%.
Dude, you want 25? Do it again.
I'm still giving more of the pie.
Here's the thing. They got rapport, okay? They're getting them early in the process, and they care. You can't put it like that's huge. That's such a competitive advantage.
Managers. These are 10-year staff members that have been nothing but property managers, and they're now sitting at corporate. They're not on the side level anymore.
This is what good operations looks like, folks. No, but this is what there's thought going into this. There's creative solutions and there's implementation.
Yeah,
fucking awesome.
So again, that's why I say I always want to give back. It's an honor to be on y'all's show. You have such a huge base, and so if I can just give back on those things, that's just new stuff. We just implemented that in January. So now we're hitting the new move-ins. We're hitting the notice of vacates, and now they're hitting collections. So as they get more, because I need them to pay for themselves, as they get more in, I'll hire a third person because I think it's going to be a big piece of what we're doing. I'd rather bring that in-house, and keep all the profits for the properties because $1 is worth 17 on a 6 cap. Every dollar they get is $17 of valuation.
What would the conversation have been like if you would have proposed these changes with that third-party company? I'd be a smart ass, but no shit.
Never would have happened. Never would have happened.
They would have been
or they would have kept the proceeds because they also kept them.
Good idea, Robert. I like that. I'm going to keep the money too. That's good.
Yeah.
And then we'll implement it elsewhere. All right, Gino, take us home.
Well, Robert, I just want to wrap up your story because I think it's an awesome story because in 2007, you go work and you're still working at corporate and you meet your partner in 2008. You start buying deals when everyone's running for the exits. You're probably saying to yourself, I've never done this before. Let me start buying. And 3 years later, you're at 2,000 units. But like all good things end. You start going on your own. And what I like most about the story, more than anything else, is you're buying one deal a year. And in 2014, you start ramping up. 2020 comes, you go, meet Grant Cardone. He gives you a lot of great advice. The one piece of advice that you maybe shouldn't have taken was, hey, do what you love. And from what I see, you love the management aspect of it. So it doesn't matter to scale. Why would you scale something out of your life that you love? I think you learned that lesson the hard way. And I think everyone listening to this should really take that to heart. If you love something and it's part of your soul and it's part of your being, don't scale it out. Try to figure out how to incorporate it and keep it in your life. And my favorite conversation that you had was with your mother. You should have listened to your mom and not to Grant, because mom said, hey, Robert, you got 22 other properties. Get rid of this one and take care of the other 22. So it's always a good thing to go back to mama and talk to mama because she knows best. Right, Jake?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to listen to mama. Man, this has been really fun. I appreciate you being able to share your side of the story because a lot of shit's getting tossed around out there on social media and the caca these days. So, gang, as always, we believe in buying deals for the long term. Think in decades. I'm Jake. He is the G Daddy, and we make it happen. And that's Robert over there making it happen.
Thanks, Robert.
So we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.